Minister, do you think Singaporeans still vote based on the race of the person running for in the elections?
It's difficult to generalize. The way I would put it is, it's not just in Singapore. In every society, if the sort of connection with the person standing for elections is always important. And that connection can come in many ways. Went to the same, born in the same district, or same religion, or same race, or a similar type of experience, a long experience. So when we trust and we feel connected to people who are like us, that is a fact. I'm not saying that is the only factor, but that can be a fact. And to that extent, race is a powerful connector, same race. And if you look at elections around the world, it stares at you in the face. Do you think anytime soon you're going to see a non-white Prime Minister of Britain? Has there been one? Why hasn't there been one? Or a non-white President of France? After 200 years, you've got an exceptional man becoming President of the United States who is of African American descent. But that is an exception. You go back to the senatorial races. In their entire history, how many senators of African American lineage? 9. And not all of them were elected. And you tell me race is not a factor. Race is always a factor. I think in Singapore we have gone further than many other places to transcend race, because this whole idea of multiculturalism, racial harmony and all have been, sort of built in better into Singapore, I think, because we have taken active efforts. After a while, people have started becoming more and more accepting, tolerant, appreciative of our multicultural approach and a multiracial, multireligious approach. But nevertheless, deep down, I'm not saying all Singaporeans, but I think for some Singaporeans, in some aspects, race can be a factor, and during elections, it can become a factor. And the GRC system removes that from politics.
Would you say that the GRC system has been effective then in bringing up the minority races, the voices of the minority races?
I will look at it this way. First of all, the GRC system prevents you from making race an issue along the lines of, I'm of this race, he is of that race, vote for me. I'm Chinese, he is Indian, you vote for me. As you know, candidates have done even in the 80s. Of course, they won't say it publicly, but they'll whisper it on the ground. You know that has happened. It happened with Mr. Chandradas. And the reverse, Indian saying to the Indian ground, I'm Indian, vote for me. So the GRC requires both sides to have a minority candidate. So it removes this sort of debate either at rallies or on the ground, number one. Number two, I think it gives confidence that there will be a certain minimum minority representation in Parliament, which is a good thing.
How has the NCMP role been effective in Parliament in bringing in other views as well?
NCMP or NMP?
NMP, sorry.
I was a strong supporter of the scheme. My own view has been that good to have people representing different groups, expressing their viewpoints, the arts group, the labor movement, certain sections of society. It's good to give them a voice, and it doesn't detract from the elected MPs and the NCMPs. It's an additional representation, viewpoints, debates, and over the years, the NMPs have contributed significantly to the debates.
Okay. So that is something that will prevail, that will continue.
Well, my own view is that it should continue.
Okay, all right.
I can only speak for myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. With the coming election, has the party addressed all the issues of anger that were evident in the 2011 elections issues of transport, of migration, housing, and cost of living, for instance?
If you take cost of living, that's been a factor forever, in the sense that, when I was elected in 1988, it was an issue. It was an issue before that, and it's been an issue right through. The feeling that as your aspirations rise, what you want and how much are you earning, there's a gap. People will be not very happy. I think the real issue is economically where we are compared with other countries. If you take any period, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, if you don't get the economy right, you're out of power. If people don't have jobs, if there is 15% unemployment or more, you are in trouble. And most countries, because of populist reasons, didn't get their system right, and you had parties being thrown out of power, people hoping that the new parties will fix the system, lurches of policy. For us, at most times we have had full employment, sensible economic policies, not populist, but enhancing the wealth of the broad section of the population. In fact, as DPM Tharman pointed out, the true success of Singapore is how people in the lower income sectors have all been uplifted in a broad way. This is in many ways a socialist society, housing provided, medical care subsidized, education subsidized, but all on a non-socialist tax base. You compare the tax rates here, highest tax rate marginal is 22%, and GST at 7% compared with the countries that people usually look at, Norway, Denmark, Sweden. We are talking about personal income tax rates of 40-50% or more, and GST rates above 20%. Even then in Finland, if you look at the unemployment rate, young people are at 25% unemployment rate. Now, so my fundamental point is, throughout its history, we've gotten the fundamental economy right in terms of making sure people get good jobs, good education, they get housing. Nevertheless, within a cross-section of society, you will always have people who feel that their aspirations are not being met. And we have to look at that. And while we cannot please everyone, we have to be fair. That is the question. If a majority of people feel that you're not being fair, then you're out. I think so far we have avoided that. In terms of specifically the issues in 2011, housing, as Minister Kaur pointed out, much has been done, but it's no time to rest on the laurels. Much needs to be done. If you look at transport, people know we are doing our best. By 2021, the network would be doubled. In buses, we are ready to bring in the buses. We don't have enough drivers, which is a key bottleneck. But transportation system has to improve. And people know that we are doing our best to improve them. If you look at other issues, for example, we have a fast aging society. Today we have 5 persons, nearly 6 persons working for every 1 person above 65. Within 15 years, that's going to go down to 2 persons under 65 working for 1 person above 65. 900,000 people are going to be crossing the age of 65. These are serious challenges. How are we going to meet them? What's going to happen to your medical care? Which is why we've put in universal health care, because we have a fast aging population. We need to make sure that we have the right infrastructure in place. But nevertheless, we face significant challenges over the next 15 years.
How important is it to maintain that 60.14% majority vote?
In answer to your question on 60.1, I think it's very important that the government is given a strong mandate. Why? It really depends on what you want in leadership. So far, Singaporeans have always given a strong mandate, and that has made us go from third world to first, from US $500 per capita in 1965 to US $65,000 now. And the fruits of that wealth have generally been shared broadly, asset owning class, substantial movement up for the entire society. But that only came about because the government was not populist. It took a long term view. And at the same time, it made sure that across the board, people benefited from progress. In order for a government to have the confidence to continue to make policies in the long term and not be impacted by short term populism, I think you need a very strong mandate. And that it depends on what signal the population sends. You get the leadership that you will get based on the kind of politics you have.